Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this 2024 edition of Hispanic Heritage Month, Peace and Progress. We're about to start. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Robert Rizo with the City of Kyle.
And I am Daniela Parsley, City Council District 5. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Just want to talk about real quickly about the origins of why we're here today. The origins of Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic Heritage Month has its roots in the cultural celebrations of several Latin American countries. It began on September 15th, the anniversary of the independence of 5 countries: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Mexico and Chile also celebrate their independence days on September 16th and September 18th, respectively. Hispanic Heritage Month culminates with Dia de la Raza in observance of the arrival of Europeans to the Americas. In the United States, Hispanic Heritage Month was officially established by law in 1988 to honor the diverse and vibrant contributions of Hispanics and Latin Americans to the nation's history, culture, and society. It's a time when communities across the country host events, art exhibitions, performances, and educational programs to showcase the richness of the Hispanic culture. And with that, I'd love to, for the panelists to please introduce themselves and just a quick introduction, please.
We'll start with Vianna.
Hi, my name is Vianna Garza, and I just want to thank you all for having us today. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Muy buenas noches. This is Michelle Lopez, and I am excited to be here as well. I'm a business leader here, a business owner in Kyle and in the community, and very happy to participate.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Freddy Alvarez. I'm a resident here in Kyle for the last 8 years. Very honored to be here as well.
Thank you very much. My name is J.R. Gonzales, and this evening I'm representing TAMACC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. It's an honor. Thank you so much. My name is Nelia Barrera, and I'm the owner of Emerald Drilling Solutions. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Michelle Cohen, Hays County Commissioner of Precinct 2, 40-year resident of Hays County, lived here a long time. So happy to be here with everyone once again, and looking forward to the panel tonight.
Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself and for joining us today. We are very excited first to be hosting this event together, for having, I think this is going to be the 4th year. This is going to be my 3rd year, and I'm very excited to have you guys over. So with that, I think we're going to start digging into the questions. You good?
That'd be great.
I was going to start with a joke, but they were really bad, so I'm not going to use any of those. So I know you guys introduced your name, and thanks for being in here. Would you like to share with you guys a little bit more about yourself and your own cultural identity? Who would like to share with us?
And in order to speak, just raise your paddle.
Your little paddle,
and
yes.
we will call on you. Dr. Michelle Lopez.
Thank you. So I consider myself a North Texas girl who has lived here in Hays County for almost 30 years or somewhere in Central Texas. I'm a former resident of Kyle and a former city council member of Kyle, mayor pro tem, and member of the school board. And so many of the things that I've been able to do are all a result of my culture and who I grew up to be. I grew up in a family of educators, Mexican American, and I consider myself a Mexican American because there's such a love for both cultures and how I've been able to infuse that my entire life. Whether it was growing up in a community and a neighborhood that was mostly Anglo, and there were maybe a few of us that were brown skin, I always knew that I spoke other languages with my grandmother and my grandfather and my Nina and Nino, and if you wanted to eat, you had to know Spanish so that you could eat when you were over there. But it's those pieces that I started recognizing in high school, how important they were and what made me unique and what brought some qualities to me. So I've always tried to live a life that is going to be one of honor and respect, and to bring in my culture as I try to raise my son, who is about to be 15. It's an important part of who I am. It's not every bit, but it's an important part of who I am. And it really is the lens, part of the lens that I use when I'm out in my business, when I'm out working with others, when I'm out in the community. And so I do identify as Mexican American, sometimes Tejana, and sometimes Latina. So it's very different for me, but it's a great way to just share some of those experiences from a North Texas girl where you never pronounce anything correctly to coming further south to Central Texas and even working further south at universities where everybody pronounces everything correctly. It was a bit of a culture shock coming down here too. But thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Freddie?
Well, I'm a little bit of a different story. So I was born in Guatemala, and I came to this country as a young lad, 7th, 8th grade, and in the Northeast to New Jersey, where it's very diverse. You have Dominicans, Colombians, Puerto Ricans, and I learned to really embrace the Latin culture as it is, as different people from different countries, different parts of the country, and really relate to so many different cultures mixed in one area. I joined the Marines, became a U.S. citizen, and I traveled. I lived in Connecticut, in Puerto Rico, in Mexico for 3 years, New York, and I found home in Kyle, Texas, the last 8 years. And I think the lens that Michelle was speaking about, it's something that us as Latinos use because of how we were raised. Those family values that are installed in you, like, talking about working families that try to do well for society, for their kids. And that's the reason why, one of the main reasons why I am where I'm at today. Great schools in Kyle, great society, great communities. And I think it's important that we as Latinos, we realize that it is our job to raise the next generation to be better than what we had, kind of deal. So that's who I am as far as my ethnicity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to share about themselves? JR?
Yes, I will. Definitely consider myself American-born, sangre de Mexicano, and I identify myself as a Tejano. So I'm very proud of the fact I was born in a little town called Mercedes, right there on the frontera. Interesting upbringing for a while there, but very been blessed. I've had an opportunity to travel all over the country, many parts of the world, and very, very proud of the fact that I am Mexican-American Latino. And if somebody hasn't heard that term or not familiar with it, we'll buy a beer, spend a few hours, and I'll tell them all about it.
Sounds good. Anyone else? All right. Daniela, would you like to share a little bit about yourself? You have an interesting
Story?
culture.
Yes. So I am born and raised in Venezuela, and I moved to the United States when I was 26 years after meeting my husband online, which is a little bit of a crazy story while he was deployed. And I dropped almost my last semester of my master's, and my family wanted to kill me, and they wanted to kill Gabe, because why was I gonna leave? And I'm like, all right, I graduated, I did everything I needed to do. So yeah, the culture shock was tremendous. We moved in so many places with the military, but as soon as we drove through Kyle, we said, this is home, this is where we really wanna set our roots. We've been here about 7 years now. I have my 2 children that go to Hays ISD, and I'm an educator now, a city council member for another month and a half, and I'm an educator myself. So it has been great to be a part of the City of Kyle Council and being able to bring more awareness of what we have to offer, not only as a Hispanic, but also the traditions and the culture that involves being born in a different place. So,
Very nice. So just real quickly, just want to say a little bit about myself. So 4th-generation resident of Kyle. I am a product of Kyle's, I would like to say. Everything in Kyle touched me. It helped raise me. It was, Kyle was a lot different when I was growing up, small town. We're very countrified, as I would say. So we grew up Tejano. As I got older, I started learning more about the Chicano movement and everything else around it. So, I was question, what am I? Am I Tejano? Am I Chicano? Am I Hispano? What am I? But really, we're all that, we're all Mexican Americans, and our cultures, they come together and they make us who we are as a person. So really excited about, being Hispanic American and growing up and getting to know what it's like to be, someone here in South Texas growing up. The experiences were amazing. I love being able to take all the cultures, the familia and everything else together and being able to share it, and share a little bit of ourselves. We have, picnics at our house and invite other people to come see and experience our culture as well. So I'm really proud of the community I'm at, and growing up here in Texas, it's been amazing. So thank you.
All right, let's dig into the second question. We'll
Sure.
go for it.
All right, so the second question, what challenges have you faced with language differences within and between Latino-speaking cultures?
And I hope you saw our video and how different our Spanish is.
Ready?
Well, I had the opportunity to, work in Puerto Rico, and coming from New York, you get engaged with Puerto Ricans, and you think that Puerto Rico is a certain way because you have the New Yorkers, right? So you have this actual accent and this way of speaking and this Spanglish sort of situation, and then, I'm find myself managing people in Puerto Rico. And so you have little difficulties adjusting to, the culture, and you kind of feel like a foreigner in a Latin country, right? Mm-hmm. And then from Puerto Rico, I got the opportunity to go to Mexico and spend 3 years in Mexico. And some of the same words actually that we use every day in Puerto Rico become bad words in Mexico. And that adjustment, it just brings you back to thinking that, we are, and I was talking to my wife about it, and instead of like a melting pot that I felt like in New York, it's more like a salad. Like every little individual that brings this different flavor to this plate, right? And I think when we think about Latinos, I think that's something that we embrace. You guys are talking about Chicanos and Mexicans. Well, we have a huge community of Mexican Americans in New York. And then you come here and, come on, guys, you guys should be the same. Yeah? And it's a complete difference, just like Los Angeles, just like California. And, I think it wasn't a struggle, but it was actually a very unique experience to not only embrace the language, but the culture of us Latinos in different parts of the country and in different countries for me.
Nelia?
Yes. May I answer the first question?
Yes.
I thought we were going to go down the panel. I'm sorry.
So the paddle just
Okay. So my name is Nelia Barrera, and I'm the owner of Emerald Drilling Solutions. My grandfather, I'm from South Texas, a small town in South Texas. My grandfather was asked in 1800s to come from Mexico and open up a private school and teach the Mexicanos. And so I am a Mexicana, teach the children of South Texas in Spanish, and that school was accredited by the state of Texas in the late 1800s. When I was 8 years old, so that taught me a lot about education. I didn't get to see my grandfather, he died, and left my grandmother with 5 sons and without an education and just no way to make it, but she did, she sewed. That taught me survival and education. 2, at the age of 8, I was going with my father in South Texas. He was running for judge. And I was going from home to home, rancho to rancho, asking for people's vote. That taught me the integrity of voting, the importance of voting, that we should vote. And so we move on to 1981. In 1981, I was a social worker, and because I had 17 years experience, I was a social worker for the city of Corpus Christi in a federally funded program. That federally funded program went under, and so we were offered the opportunity to put everything in boxes, and I thought to myself, I'm no one's Mexican. I am not going to go and fill up boxes. I'm going to go out there and find my own way. And in the interim, I found out that the oil field was a very busy industry, and I decided that I was going to just open up the phone book and call 4 or 5 service companies and tell them that I wanted to sell oil field equipment. And so the next day, this lady and her husband, who owned a business, said, well, do you have any oil field experience? I said, no, ma'am, I sure don't. I know to change the oil in my car. Well, do you have any sales experience? I said, well, I've sold Avon. And she said, well, honey, this is not for you. I said, ma'am, please don't hang up on me. Please give me an opportunity. So the next day, I interviewed for 5.5 hours who I was, where I came from, my integrity, my values, my morals, me as a Mexicana. And so I got the job. The only bad thing was that it was only on commission. If I made a sale, I would get paid in 3 to 6 months. So here I was, Mexican woman from South Texas in an all-white, all-male, macho-oriented industry, and I was to go to these ranches out in South Texas and sell them something that I knew nothing about. How am I going to do this? I didn't have a support system. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't even have a truck. I didn't have any of the tools. I didn't have an engineering degree, but somewhere inside of me there was, you can do this. And so on November 29th, 1981, I put on my little blue 3-piece suit and my little high heels, and I went out to a drilling rig, and it was raining. I looked like a wet cat. That poor guy felt sorry for me, and I made my first sale. So I thought, I can do this. So then there's a big weight on my shoulders. I'm a Mexicana in an all-white industry in South Texas. I need to act right. I need to show them who we are, our work ethic, how proud we are of where we came from. So I started working. If I had to be somewhere at 9, I would get up at 4, leave at 5, drive 3 hours, and go to 12 to 15 drilling rigs a day. And I did this for years. They gave me work because of my integrity, I think, and my hard work. But I gave them something too. I taught them about pan dulce. I would stop at the local bakery and buy 12 to 15 bags of pan dulce, and these guys from Alabama, Ohio, I mean, they didn't know anything about pan dulce. So I showed them who we were, who we are as Hispanics, as hardworking, with higher levels of participation in anything that we do. And I succeeded. They helped me. Before I knew it, I was doing business and getting main contracts, offshore, land, domestic, international. And it was all because of these guys that saw me and believed in me. And the only thing that I really thought that I would not do, I was not going to categorize myself as a woman-owned business. I was not going to be a minority-owned business. I was going to do it the way my grandparents did. When they came to the United States, no one helped them. I was going to do it like that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Nelia.
And with question number 2, just a refresher, what challenges have you faced with language differences within and between Latino-speaking cultures? JR.
Well, to Freddy's point, some things we say every day in another culture could be construed as a bad word or a curse word or something worse. The thing I've recognized most is, I mean, when you take the Hispanic community, Latino community, however you want to identify it, we're talking about over 20 countries of origin. You get those 20 countries, you are going to have different terminology. You're going to have different slang words. You're going to have different meanings. The thing that drives me crazy is when I meet somebody, I want to find out a little bit about them. I always find out where they're from and try to attach that into my memory bank of what kind of cultures or what kind of things they may have. For example, the thing that drives me crazy is the term ahorita. You know, to me, ahorita means like hoy mismo, right now. You talk to somebody from Dominican Republic, so these other countries, my Caribbean brothers and sisters, ahorita means, yeah, ahorita, you know,
I'm
that means
offended by that
I'm gonna go
comment.
home, take a shower, get dressed, watch my favorite novela, then I'll start coming. So there is a difference. I think we need to recognize that. And even within the U.S., as we're saying, you get a New York Puerto Rican, you get a Florida and Cuban, you get a farm-working Californian, you get a Tejano, you put them in the same room. No telling what's going to happen because there are the differences. So I think one of the challenges we have as a culture and as a community, some want to stereotype us as one, and we're not. We're very diverse within our own culture, with about over 20 countries of origin supplying it, and we're all proud to wear our flag on our forehead. You know, I'm Mexicano, I'm Dominican, I'm Venezuelan, I'm Nicaraguan, whatever the case may be. I think as a challenge, we have to kind of, not necessarily we celebrate those differences, but we need to learn to find that common ground and come together to try to be more unified, to be a stronger voice politically, economically, and initiate the social changes that we need to make for this country of ours to be one and improve the quality of life for everybody and just not one segment of the community.
Thank you. I have to say, my husband would agree with you, and so my kids. When I say ahorita, what does ahorita mean? Ahorita ya va, wait. Means like it could be 2 minutes, could be 10, 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. It's ahorita.
And when I grew up, ahorita means like, you better get in the car right now, boy.
Especially when your mom said it, con tu abuelita, right? So, yep, go ahead, Freddy.
So when Nelia speaks and Mr. Gonzales, I think a couple of things, right? Spoke about responsibility as a Latino, right? Like, I think we have that responsibility to bring what we bring, right? Like, you know, I was talking about family values and how we brought up, and you know, right now you say ahorita, because that means my parents were on me if I did not react immediately, right? And I think that's the responsibility, right? To, you know, I was talking about that salad and bringing your own flavor and just really bringing to the next level, right? Where we're not looking at just as, you know, this one is Puerto Rican, that one is Dominican, but we're Latinos and we're embracing it. And we're embracing it in this country where we're, you know, Latino Americanos, right? Like where we are a community that stands by each other, regardless of your heritage or where your parents came from or where you came from, right? I think it's the responsibility of everyone to really fight for the next level. You know, I was having a discussion with my wife about, you know, the Hispanic Heritage Month. I think, you know, I'll stand a little bit on the side with that because I don't think it should exist. I think we should exist all as a community, right? And be passionate about it. You know, I was just reflecting on Nelia's parents, you know, or grandparents coming, and you know, it really touched me because that's, you know, that's who we are. We're fighting race that comes and it makes a difference. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna do a Mentimeter question. Rachel, you let me know. There we go. And this is for whoever is watching online, and the panelists can reflect. What does Hispanic Heritage Month mean to you personally? So if you're watching online, you can respond. And what does it mean to you personally? I think it's interesting because Venezuela, we don't celebrate it. I mean, I guess because it's every day for Hispanics. So when it happened here, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can get behind this. And now that we are here in Kyle, it makes me happy to see so many different cultures and see so much representation, including, like, you know, we have county commissioners, we have people running for offices that are Hispanic. Yes, Nelia.
Yes, I think that Hispanic Heritage Month identifies and all the contributions that we have made over the years, beginning from the Aztecs and the Mayans, you know, great mathematicians, brilliant agriculturists, the aeronautics, you know, all these people that build roads. If you wake up in the morning and you look out, who's building all the roads? Los Hispanos. Who's building all the houses? Los Hispanos. Who's drilling all the wells that were out there in South Texas? The guys would brag, no, hombre, I've got a great crew. They're all Mexican, and I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. We have a tremendous work ethic, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Michelle Cohen.
Thank you. So, you know, when I think about this month, it feels more elevated than it used to be to me. And I tell people all the time that I'm a product of assimilation. My parents were punished for speaking Spanish, or my grandparents were. And so they taught people like me, their children, don't speak Spanish because you're going to be punished, and we want you to assimilate, in their own way. And so there's a whole generation of individuals like myself, who are not fluent in Spanish. We know words like that. When we heard that from our grandmother, we know those words, but we're not fluent. And what I've often run into is, that I'm not Mexican enough. I'm not Latina enough because I don't speak Spanish. Because, what I am is an example of what happens if we don't recognize our heritage. What it's like to be suppressed is I'm the result of that, right? So for me, I want our youth now to understand Hispanic culture and Mexican culture and where they come from, because we don't want to go back to that period of, you not knowing where you come from or what your heritage is, right? And so, one thing I'd like to say is I'm no less Latina than anyone else. I'm part of that history. This is the result of that, But, today, I'm in my 50s now, and I understand, that it's important for us to educate our kids and have Mexican-American classes and courses that they can take. I didn't take my first Mexican-American class until college, and I learned so many things like you're not his and you don't panic. Don't call yourself Hispanic. And so that always stuck with me, all of my life. I'm not his and I don't panic. Okay, so I'm going to call myself Latina, I guess. And so, it's just simple. This month is just about elevating all the cultures, educating our kids about, learning where they came from and participating in that. So it means a lot more to me now than it used to. Yeah.
Dr. Michelle had the paddle up.
I think I wanted to piggyback. I had put up my paddle as well, because for me, I think it's about the education for ourselves. I think about my family. On my mom's side, I'm a fourth-generation American. On my dad's side, I'm a third-generation American. So we're American. If you ask my son, he says, I'm American, Mom. And so he knows his identity there. But it's about that education. Very similarly, I chose to minor in Spanish in college because I really wanted to just have a better grasp versus just speaking with family. But it also introduced me to this entire body of culture, poetry, authors, different things. And when I met my husband, I realized he was able to figure out, what is that accent? What country is that from? Where are they from in Mexico? And I didn't have that ear. It's about, for me, this is really about educating ourselves, educating the next generations, so that there is a continued connection, but also a continued sense of pride. You, just as anybody else, you have a seat at the table. Just as anybody else, you have the abilities, you have the knowledge, the know-how. Let's celebrate, because sometimes you don't see that. You don't have that information. You see others, and it's great to see many of us here on this panel, because I know many of us are probably those role models for others, but not everybody gets that. So it's nice to at least have some time, but it should be incorporated 365 all the time for us.
Thank you. And I want to kind of dovetail on Michelle for a second. Michelle, you say you're Mexican, but you don't speak Spanish. Don't worry, neither did your ancestors. I mean, actually, Mayans, Incas, the indigenous people, it was the Spaniards that came over with the language of Spanish. So people go, well, you don't speak Spanish that well. So neither did my ancestors. So as we look at this, and also in the language thing, I'll get into the question to dovetail, is that I'm a little bit older than you. Probably a lot older than you. But, in Mercedes, right there on the border, first grade, you spoke Spanish, you were taken to the principal's office, and you were paddled. We didn't need no government English as a second language program. You learned English you learned it quick. So times have changed, and our education system has changed. But to answer the question, What does Hispanic Heritage Month mean to me? It's an opportunity for us as Hispanos, Latinos, however we want to identify ourselves, to get together and celebrate our culture. A culture that is rich, that is vast, that goes beyond my own imagination as I'm still learning about the culture. But to me, it's important that we use the opportunity to educate non-Hispanics about our culture and to actually point out to them the vast influence and how our culture is woven into the tapestry of America today, and they don't even realize it. In college, I used to get picked on my dormitory, my neighbors, a couple of the guys that were in the room next to me. I was one of the few Hispanics on campus at the time. They called me Mezgan, Greaser, Spick, anything they could, and then they were cowboys. And one was rodeo clown, and one was a bull rider. And I said, you blankety blank blank, you ought to thank me. What do you mean, thank you? What have you ever done for us? I go, dudes, really? Do you think horses came over on the Mayflower? It was the Spanish conquistadores that brought them into Mexico. And as our Mustang herds grew, it was the Mexican vaqueros that tamed them and learned them. And when you white settlers came into Texas, it was the vaqueros that showed you how to ride horses. You were still using those sissy saddles, those little English things. Hombre, you need chaps, you need this, you need that. And both of you guys are rodeo guys, right? They go, yeah. I says, do you think rodeo was an English word? No, rodeo. I mean, so you look at it, that great American cowboy, actually, it wouldn't have been for the Mexican, wouldn't even exist today. So as I see Hispanic Heritage Month, not only to celebrate our own traditions, our own heritage, to educate our own children as to the pride of being Latino, but also to educate the rest of the world and go and look. And I promise I wouldn't get into this. And don't buy what you hear on the news, We're not a bunch of animals. We don't start eating people's pets. We don't do all this other stuff. But recognize us for a culture that's different and what we've contributed.
Thank you, Chair. Vianna?
So I am actually really shocked that a lot of us have either been punished for only speaking Spanish when we were younger, or we have relatives who did. I was telling Nelda today that as a kid, I entered secondary school and only knew Spanish. I came from a household that only spoke Spanish. Some of my family members knew English, but it was just mostly Spanish from my grandparents. And going into second grade, I'm from South Texas, so there's a little town called Granjeno. The border is, I walked to the border one time and got in trouble. I went to second grade, moved to Edinburgh, and the teacher would hit me for speaking Spanish. And I tell my kids this, the best way to learn another language is when you're young and you're being hit by your teacher. Because I don't know how it happened, but I spoke English the next year and almost forgot my Spanish a little bit, but I'm just I'm shocked that a lot of us experience that, because I was ashamed of being Hispanic for a while. I was ashamed for speaking Spanish, so I didn't do it for many, many, many years. Even though my grandma would speak Spanish, I would speak to her in English, and she would get upset at me because I wasn't using my language, and I couldn't anymore. And then I had kids, and I brought one of them here because this month to me personally means showing him how our community is so proud to be who we are. And my kids are, what does this mean? What is this event about? And I'm like, you're gonna see people come together, because all I know about our culture is that we are strangers, but we treat each other like family. And I don't see that anywhere else. We did a couple of station duties in the military, and I've met so many people around the world, and they're not like this. This is like a community, and we don't have to know each other. So I really appreciate these times where we can show our own kids, this is our kind of food. This is the kind of music we listen to. This is the kind of traditions we have, the parties, the fiestas. And I am at the point where I'm trying to teach my kid Spanish, because I don't want him to be like his other siblings who don't know Spanish. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So we do have two
With the
Mentimeter
chancla.
questions. We have two Mentimeter questions. The first one, responses, sorry, it was recognizing the culture and history we already know, but others might not know. The other answer was, it means a time to speak out and educate on the great Hispanic authors, artists, and leaders throughout history. Just want to follow up on something JR said. Something that really has interested me lately is one of the things, because we hear a lot of rhetoric on TV, right? One of the things that I want to really point out is when they always say that we don't belong, we actually belong more, because Mexican people are indigenous of the Americas. They're from there. They're part of the Aztecs, the Incas, Mayans. They're actually, when they talk about why do you use Hispanics in movies to portray Native Americans, because they are. They are, we forget that sometimes as a culture, that they are native to the Americas. They're just like any other Native American, whether it's Sioux or anyone else, they were from the Americas. So it's really important to remember our history and where we come from, because sometimes we forget that part of ourselves. And so I just wanted to follow up on that point right there, is always remember that the Mexicans were here a long time ago. So yeah, definitely.
Robert, to your point, we were speaking Spanish in this country long before English was even introduced. So you're absolutely right. And then to your point, too, I know I spent $49 on that Ancestry.com or whatever, and 47% indigenous. So there is a lot, the sangre of indigenous people runs through our blood, and that's who we are. And so to that point, yes, we were here first, and the thing, go back where you came from. It's kind of like, nah, don't start with me.
All right, so did you use a coupon? Can you pass that around? I had to pay 100, but I did ended up getting like 40% Italian. So I tell my husband now he has to take me to Italy. So I don't know how. All right, so let's go into our next question. Can you describe your experience in education and or higher education as a Hispanic person?
Dr. Cohen.
Okay, so I would say, and like Dr. Lopez, I would say probably less than 1% Latinas have doctorate degrees. So as I was going through my journey in higher education, I would probably be the only Hispanic in the class, or, when I got to doctorate, I was definitely the only Hispanic, woman in the class. And so, what I think I've achieved and Dr. Lopez have achieved is a big deal, is a really big deal. We are part of a very elite group because, being in those spaces is difficult, and so it is very challenging. And I know I went back to school in my 40s. So in my 40s, I just had a baby, finished my bachelor's, got my master's degree, got my doctorate degree in 8 years, while working, while raising a family, all of that together, right? Because, as I'm going through the workforce, whether it been private or public, it was either, Michelle, you have the skills, but you don't have the education. Or you have the education, but you don't have the skills to do this job. So there is always a barrier every time I try to excel within public and private sector. And so society has forced me to, elevate myself, elevate my education so I could have a fighting chance for myself, right? And it goes back to, JR said something in another thing that we were together in about there's more, 40-something% of Latina businesses have grown or something like over the period. But you know what? We're having to make opportunity for ourselves. We can't do it the traditional way, and within the hierarchies of work, being in the workforce, whether public and private, we have to create our own opportunity. We have to advocate for ourselves. So that's why you have more Latinas opening businesses, you have more Latinas running for office, you have more Latinas starting nonprofits, because society has made us do that. And that's where we are right now.
I need to piggyback on what you're saying, because after hearing Nelia's story, after hearing your story, and I've known Michelle for a while, I feel like you can't tell a Latina, oh, you cannot do that, because we were gonna say, watch me. That's just how it is. No. When I started college, I walked in a room of 80 students, and there were 2 females. There were not many mechanical engineering people back then. So I feel like I love a challenge. And now hearing your story, I just started a new master's and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 44. Am I ever gonna figure who's gonna hire me at this point? So that gives me hope.
No,
Thank you for
absolutely.
sharing that. Anybody else? JR.
I'm trying to pick my words carefully. I think the education system in this country is one that needs a lot of improvement. It wasn't that long ago. Well, it probably was a long time ago. But when I was in high school, it was very discouraging in that this was Austin, Texas, South Austin High School. I got called into the counselor's office, and they said, you filled out the wrong paperwork. I go, what do you mean I filled out the wrong paperwork? See, you fill out the paperwork for college-bound students. You need to fill out this. This is for vocational. This is so you can learn auto mechanics or bricklaying or woodwork. I go, no, I filled out the right paperwork. They go, no, sweetie, you don't understand. One of these days, if you're lucky enough to graduate and you get married and you have a family to support, you're going to have to work. And so you need to get one of these jobs so you can pay the bills and support your household. And I said, no, I filled out the right paperwork. I'm college bound. Growing up, my mom would go, mijo, it's when you go to college. I never had a choice. And with that whole Latina thing, that's the only thing on God's earth that really scares me is Latinas. So I was college bound. Unfortunately, I took my mother, took my mother to come up to the school to talk to the counselors. And when they found out she was an educator, it kind of changed the whole dynamic. But to that point, about 10 years afterwards, it was really shocking to me because one of my favorite teachers, it was a school. I played football. I was who's who, a student council president, all that. But there was, out of 3,500 students, there was only like 300 of us with Spanish surnames. And they said, this was a teacher. It says, you know, JR, you really taught a lot of us teachers a lot when you were here at school. I go, what do you mean? How did I teach you? Until you came along, we didn't know that Mexican children were capable of taking leadership roles in the school. And I'm going, wow. Okay, like a burro just kicked me in the head on that one. Then I enrolled at what at the time Southwest Texas State University. And I'm very proud of that university. I'm a proud Bobcat. But when I enrolled, I increased the Hispanic population by at least 33% because it was me, the cafeteria ladies, and the groundskeepers, and that was it. Now, very proudly, it's a Hispanic serving institution with over 50% of its population Hispanic. And to the two doctors on the each end, congratulations, you are an anomaly. Yeah. The fact that we're only talking about 12 to 13% of the entire Hispanic population in this country has a post-secondary degree, and then to have PhDs, it's phenomenal. And we say about 12 to 13%, we're still at the bottom of the rung. We're behind African Americans. We're behind non-Hispanic whites. We're behind Asians. We're behind everybody. But that trajectory is going up. We have a lot to go. But the fact that our population is growing so fast, we're playing the catch-up game. Mm-hmm. So I think education is a cornerstone of any society, and as a community, we need to put more and more emphasis on our education system. Don't get me started about school vouchers. Don't get me started about private schools and some other stuff. But there's a lot of things we can do as a community if we don't put enough effort into our education system, because 30%, let me get this right, over 50% of the Hispanic population in this country is under the age of 30. Over 50%. We're a very young group. And the fact of the matter is, between the years of 2020, the decade we're in now, between 2020 and 2030, 78% of all new hires in this country will be Hispanic. And if we don't educate that workforce, we're going to up for a lot of problems in the near future.
Michelle.
Thank you for the shout outs, Dr. Michelle, over on the other end, and JR. In all of my years, I spent about 20 years full-time in higher education. So many students coming in that I get to work with who were leaders, who had aspirations from many different cultures. And I think a running theme that is just so evident that I just want to highlight here, even though you might get the scholarship, even though you might get into the special program, the fact of the matter is you have to do the work. You are the one responsible for everything that is there. And even if it might have been getting into a graduate program where you weren't with anybody else that looked like you or other women. The important piece is everybody here has done the work. And so there isn't any shortcut there. And it's important to recognize we can help each other. When I finished my doctorate, I took the long route. It took me 13 years, and I had the red note final extension because I was out serving on city council, being in the community, not writing my dissertation. And so I made it a point for myself. Anytime I meet someone who is starting a program, whether they're male or female, but particularly for Latinas that I meet, I want your card because I want to be your champion, because I know it's going to be hard, and I want to be there for you because this is something significant. And the way you get there is that you do the work, and it's important to recognize that.
Thank you. That's great.
Pretty amazing. When you talk about how do we make a difference, this is the way we make a difference. I mean, showing our children that we can achieve all this with hard work and dedication. You all are an example of that, and that's amazing. I mean, being role models for our young people and opening doors for them is just by being here, your presence and showing the work and where you've achieved in life is a great example for our young people, how they can get there as well, and that they can get there. And that's the biggest thing. Si se puede. Con ganas, si se puede. For
Robert,
sure.
they can get there, but at the same time, and I'm going to use the examples, I'm going to do a shout out to the two Michelles over here. One thing that I learned, and I think pretty much everybody up here will probably attest to as well, growing up, my dad used to tell me, mijo, sometimes you're going to have to work twice as hard just to stay even with the guy next to you. Never understood that when I was a kid. But later on, I started to understand because, unfortunately, as Latinos, as people of color in this community, in this world, there's other people who look down upon us, do not take us serious, think that we're genetically inferior, think that we're incapable. Oh, they're just Mexicans, they're just Latinos, and they don't give us the credit that it's due, that we're due. So often, the whole competitiveness, we have to work twice as hard, we have to do it quicker, we have to do it better than the person next to us, or we're not going to get an even shake. And that thing still exists. The whole thing of bigotry and prejudice is alive and well. It's just kind of hidden through economic methods and voting suppression and any number of other things. But as we're looking at that, I think it's important that we teach our young people that be proud of who you are, but also recognize you need to work hard, because somebody right next to you may have the person next to you, if they're not a person of color, if they're not Latinos, if they've had a different type of experience, that roadway may be paved for them already. Yeah. But we're going to have to overcome those obstacles. So that's just a point that I wanted to make, that is very, very difficult for those that have actually been successful and have achieved stuff. It wasn't easy, but at the same time, we often, and kudos to the PhD holders up here, they accomplished it, they did it on their own, and I'm sure they overcame a lot of other obstacles than just another person going for the same thing.
So we have the next question is, what are some of the challenges you have faced and overcome as a Hispanic person? I think a lot of the conversation has touched on that too.
Yeah, a little bit. Is there anyone that'd like to touch a little bit on that?
Repeat the question.
So, what are some of the challenges you have faced and overcome as a Hispanic person? I think you touched a little bit on that already.
Yes. Do we want to jump to the Mentimeter
Yeah,
one?
well, I'll weigh in there for just a minute. Growing up, you talked about how hard it was going into school, and it definitely was that way. I grew up with my two abuelitas because my parents worked full-time jobs. So before I got into school, I had to grow up with my grandparents. I lived with them majority of the time and came home on the weekends. And when I got to school, I would say, man, they beat the Spanish out of me pretty good. And I didn't want to speak Spanish the rest of my life. I mean, going into school, I did everything I could to remember what I had grown up with. And it wasn't until I was in high school, and it was music that got me back into Spanish. It was Tejano music. I remember getting invited to a dance, and I was like, I don't want to go to a dance. I was listening to country music and rock and roll, right? And I got in La Mafia was playing, and Oscar was sitting on stage, and from La Mafia, Oscar and Leonard, and he started singing "Oh Girl," and the crowd went crazy, and I go, there's something to this Tejano music, I think, and the dancing, everything was really a great experience for me. But right there, it gave me a sense of pride in my culture. And Tejano music did that for me, which is amazing. And then to be able to go back and immerse myself. Immersion, I still believe in immersion. I immersed myself in the culture, in the language. I picked up everything I could read, and I listened to the novelas. I always joke around with my wife, said, my Spanish, when I used to speak Spanish when I first learned watching novelas, Paula, ¿cómo estás? But it was great. We had a blast, and it was a great experience for me. But it was the music that brought me back to my culture and made me not afraid of it. So it was pretty amazing. Michelle.
I just wanted to share about the music. The music's always been an important part of me for my culture. I was that kid who had posters of Sunny and the Sunliners on my wall. I had Little Joe y La Familia on my wall when I was a kid. It's Selena, before she was even famous. She was doing her concerts down in the valley or, traveling around, and I remember seeing and hearing her. The music is such an important part, and I think it's such a great way to share. Even when I would listen to Tejano music, and it's a really upbeat song, but it's really a sad story. So, oh my goodness, they tell a story, and what a great, rich way to really share who we are through music.
Yeah, definitely.
That is true.
And the influences that we have in Tejano music here, I mean, you have German, you have the polkas, a little bit of everything in there, country, rock. I mean, Tejano music is amazing, but it shows you how we can come together as a society and we can grow. I mean, we can integrate all these cultures and make a really beautiful world for our kids and for everybody else. And that's what I'm a big advocate for Tejano music because I love it, and because it's so rich of different cultures. It's amazing. But it definitely gives you a sense of pride as well, so definitely good.
All right, should we go to the next Mentimeter question? Sure. All right, so this is for the audience, and then we can ask our panelists to share. What is the importance of having Hispanic representation in local government? So what is the importance of having Hispanic representation in local government? If you are online, you can join at menti.com and use the code 8557-7807.
Dr. Lopez.
So this question takes me back to my dissertation work. I spoke with 12 Mexican-American women who were from director to vice president in higher education, and I really wanted to understand their trajectory into a leadership role. How did they get there? And one of the things that stood out, and I remember this clearly, I was at my defense for my dissertation. I really was a little disappointed because I didn't think I had really found much, if anything, new for the knowledge. And I was sharing with them about this whole idea of the family, and decisions for women in those roles are really about what's best for the family versus what we see in a more, what we would say, traditional American role. It's what's best for me, how do I get to my goals? But it really was. There were women who were working on their doctorate, and their mom fed their family every night that they had class. They took care of them, they supported them. And I think when we talk about government, it's that lens, having, bringing those differences and having a lens of, okay, we do need to succeed. We need to succeed as a country. How do we bring us all along too with that lens of how do we make this kind of that decision of how others are brought into that decision-making process, how we are able to support. And so I think that's part of why it's important to bring just this lens and this experience as part of the voice in the conversation. Decision-making, policy-making for our communities is so central to what makes America so unique. Having that diversity of voices and thought is extremely important.
I agree.
Great answer.
Thank you. The question is the importance of having Hispanic representation in local government. I think one of the things that I'm finding, being from South Texas, I remember the old people used to go out and vote, and they would say, "No, hombre, mijita, yo voté hoy," with pride. And that sense of pride is missing here. I don't know how to give them that sense of pride that I have in that we have the right to vote. The good thing about having a local representation is that you guys represent us and our ideas. And how are we going to create change if we don't vote for you and you listen to us and then create the change? How is it ever going to happen if I don't vote? And I'm hearing, because I'm really an advocate for get out the vote. It doesn't matter who you're going to vote for, just vote. And it's, well, se va a quedar la misma cosa. The things are going to stay the same. Well, of course they're going to stay the same because you're not voting. So thank you for your service. Thank you for putting yourself out there. And you get insulted a lot here. I always feel bad for you. I do. And so thank you for putting yourself out there, because as a child, as an 8-year-old, I was out there running the roads with my father and learning the importance of getting out the vote. Thank you.
Question is, what is the importance of having Hispanic representationship in local government? I'm a firm believer that any government should reflect the people it serves. Whether you're an elected official or you work in city government, it is a public service. It is a responsibility, it is a duty. And when you don't have people, when you don't have a diverse government system, or if you don't have people within the system, or Hispanics, to serve a Hispanic community, I mean, right here in the city of Kyle, what is it? 50, 60, 70, what's the Hispanic population?
54, 50, something like that.
Seems like more, but that's okay. Regardless is you have cultural barriers, you have language barriers, and if somebody has an issue with a water bill, if somebody has an issue with something going on, they want to be, hey, ¿sabes qué? That's Robert, I know him, I know his family, or I've known him forever. Mm-hmm. Or they want to speak in Spanish, or they want to know that they're understood. And within communication is very key. And so you have those cultural differences, you have language barriers, you have those little nuances in communication that are essential to make sure the other person fully understands what you're saying or doing. So to me, it is important that in government, that government reflects the people, the community it serves. And if it's not, then we need to do a better job of not only the election process, the electoral process, but to put the pressure on the people that are making those hiring decisions to go, we need more Latinos in city government. We need more Latinos in county government. We need more Latinos there because they understand us, they're a part of us, they understand the culture, they understand the people. And if we're truly going to have a government for the people and by the people, pues, let's put Latinos in the damn job. I mean, that's the way it works. So that's my 2 cents on that one.
All right. Anyone else? Dr. Michelle Cohen?
Someone sitting in current government right now, I think my campaign slogan was true representation matters, and it absolutely does. My precinct is over 50% Hispanic, right? And I think I was kind of like what Nelia described, the individual that thought, oh, my vote doesn't matter, it's not going to make a change. And I think I was one of those people too. And it took me a long time to understand that my vote would make a difference, right? And I think anyone who's in elected office now, Hispanic, there was some motivator behind it. And so for me, my family never talked about politics. My dad said, we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about who we voted for, nothing. We don't talk about it, right? So, and that's how I grew up, not having those conversations at the table about politics. And I think it's important for families to start doing that. And one thing that I believe is if you can't see it, you can't be it. So, for me, running for office, which is something that I thought I would never do. I mean, if you asked me even maybe 6 years ago, I would, no, I'm not gonna. It's not for me. But the pandemic changed my mind. Watching my community die and suffer and lose jobs, and also seeing who goes to the front of the line in the pandemic, who is forced to work, during a pandemic, who did we lose during the pandemic, right? All of that made an impact on me. And at that time, I was doing, Hays Latinos United. I was out there doing PPE, COVID tests, vaccines, food, water, whatever I could do for my community. And that's where I truly saw the disparity that existed in our city. That is what motivated me to run for office. Because I thought, if I could do this just as a private citizen, self-funding efforts, donations, and help my community, then what could I accomplish at this level, right? And so it's great for me to, when I go talk to kids now and they see me, they see a Latina, and it makes an impact on them, and a lasting impact on them. And that's what we want, right? We want our youth to think about, well, I'm gonna run for, mayor one day. I'm gonna run for county commissioner one day. That's what we want. We want them to be more involved in our government and participate as well. So it's a tough job. It is. It's not easy, toughest job I've ever had, and you gotta be strong to do it. But I think, like me, 53, I've been through some things. Yeah, there's not too much that can really impact me at this point. So, I think I've been, prepared to lead this role at this time. So, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So some of the Mentimeter answers we got: perspective is important. We have a very large Hispanic community, and having representation that brings forward the voices of that community is important, and it inspires other young Hispanic people in the community to be leaders. So I do want to share, as most as you know, I teach at IDEA. IDEA has a large Hispanic population of kids. I have students that speak no English. So it has been very interesting. Most of them know that I have been on the city council, and it sparks curiosity. Or they come to City Hall, Mrs. Parsley, I saw your picture in City Hall, and they get super excited. So what do you do? So I'm like, you can put complaints to me. Is your road having trouble? Then you can complain. And they come, and they complain. So to that point, I am happy that I have talked to them about what it is to be on a city council and why it's important and the things that you can impact. Now we have Kayak, and there are several of my students that have joined Kayak because they want to give input into what the city is doing for youth. So it is, I feel like if I'm putting a grain of rice in them, in their minds of, what are the decisions that matter in your city, why voting is so important, because eventually when they have the age, they can pick who they want them to be who wants to represent them more. It's important for them to know that they have somebody they can talk to on a local government.
Definitely. And just want to talk a little bit about Cal history. And Dr. Lopez, go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback on that.
Okay.
It's that whole idea of, give a man a fish, you feed him for one day, teach him to fish, they know how to feed themselves. It's that introduction that you're doing that we're hearing. You're talking about how do you get integrated into that? How do you be a part of the system that can change? You're introducing them to the fact that you can do this, and having these opportunities for them to then meet others to recognize this is how I make an impact. And I think it goes back into even when I work with my clients or I work with others that I'm mentoring, there are two concepts. We want mentors. Mentors are great. Mentors are the ones who can show you the ropes and getting them into spaces where they can find those individuals. But at some point, they're going to need what's called a sponsor. And a sponsor is what so many others have had over the years, particularly men in this arena for work in particular. But a sponsor is someone who sees what you do, sees the integrity, sees the hard work, and they're the ones who make the call and say, this is the right one for you. You need to look at their resume. You need to give them a chance. And so giving our young individuals, our youth, and those who are really working into this, it's important to show them, here's the ropes, here's the system. Get integrated into it so that they start understanding how they navigate that, so that they have the social capital that they need.
That's great. Just wanted to share a little bit about some history of Kyle. Paula Alvarez was the first Hispanic woman ever elected to city council, and she's an amazing person. Her brother Fidel, great person as well. When they approached me about running for city council, I had reservations and thought, well, it's not really for me. It's not really what I want to do. But, I think about what challenges she had when she got to council and had to, not only as Hispanic, but also as a woman. It's an all-man council, and she's the only woman there. And what were the obstacles she had to, and the challenges she had to overcome to definitely open the doors for the rest of us, right? For everybody, right? Latinos, but mainly the Hispanic women. I think about them being amazing, being the true champions there. But when they reached out to me, asked me to run, and I didn't understand why, because like Dr. Cohen, I never expected to run for office ever. It's not what I set out to be when I started volunteering in the community. I just wanted to give back to my community, and when they reached out to me and asked me to run, I considered it because of who I was coming from, Paula Alvarez. But, it's kind of like, it's important because she said it's important because the families of Kyle, the Hispanic families of Kyle don't have a voice right now, and they need that voice. And right there is when they convinced me to run for office. And I said, well, let me think about it and ponder about it, really pray about it. I don't do anything without prayer. I always pray about everything I do, and God speaks to you, and he definitely spoke to me. And I think Paula and her brother had a big part of me running for office. But it's important because everybody needs a voice. The old Hispanic families of Kyle were being forgotten. The old neighborhoods, everything, that helped shape Kyle in its early years was being forgotten. And to be able to come back and be that voice is really important for me. But also now it's about, Dr. Cohen and I have these conversations about, encouraging the next generation of Hispanic leaders is really important as well, and making sure we're great examples, and that's something that we always talk about, make sure that we're setting a good path for our next generation of leaders, and it's important. But I just wanted to say, I just never thought, I used to ride my bicycle up and down these streets when I was a skinny 10, 11-year-old kid, and to be sitting here on this dais is definitely something that's very humbling for me, and I hope that I'm doing a really good job, representing the Hispanic community. But I hope to be an inspiration for the next generation, just like Dr. Michelle Cohen and everybody else up here. I mean, it's something that we strive for. We have a lot of weight on our shoulders because not only do we have to make these hard decisions, but we have to make sure that we're making decisions so that way we shape the young lives that are coming up behind us. So definitely a lot of responsibility. Thank you.
You want to go for the next question?
Sure. All right. Next panelist question. As a customer and or a business owner, how can small Hispanic-owned businesses effectively leverage their culture, heritage to build brand identity and loyalty among diverse customer bases? Nelia.
So being in business, it was, I think one of the things about Hispanics, Vianna said earlier that sometimes we don't know each other. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. We don't know each other, but we act like we've known each other all our lives. Just that warmth that we had, that we exude, that gentleness about us, that sincerity. And in business, when you're looking for work and you're looking for sales, you want to exude that kindness. And I was competing against companies like Halliburton. But what did Halliburton have that I didn't have? I couldn't name my product Taco Bell Nelia, I couldn't name it the sacks of, I don't know, harina something. It had to be a name of formality, because what I was selling was not that name. I was selling my business. And I got to compete against those big companies like Worldwide Halliburton and would win the bid. So in the end, it's not about the name. It's about yourself and how you represent yourself. Thank you.
I think I manage businesses in different parts of the country, and that ethnicity, that Latino ethnicity, right? Like, you shop where you feel comfortable. And as Latinos, I think we do that really well. I think if we have a business that caters a Latino community, we do that well. People feel comfortable. They come to you. If you speak Spanish, they don't speak English, so you can actually relate the bicultural thing where you relate with the culture. I think that's well. I think the challenge comes with, how do you cater to communities, customers outside of your community as a small business, right? And I think it goes back to the responsibility that everybody's talking about, how, as a Latino, you embrace not only your culture, but the American culture as well. And I'm fortunate enough, I accepted a position with SpaceX, helping the Latino community. And I'm starting, but I'm very excited about bringing that. That responsibility relies on my shoulders, not only to do a good job, but to bring others, to help people come to a company that's really hard to get into and expand that. And I know it's not a small business, but it's the same idea. It's the same idea where you have a community that needs to be catered by people that are just like you, right? That you relate to that person. So I think that's the challenge, is how do you run a Latino business that caters to everybody?
Vianna?
So as a customer, I think when I'm thinking about food right now, when I look at restaurants, I'm looking for the authentic ingredients. I think it's really important that, I come from the Valley. A lot of you come from the Valley, so the food over there is not like the food over here at all. So just finding those spots here in Kyle, whenever I find something that tastes like the Valley or close to the Valley, I stick to it. And I am one of those loyal customers, and I will keep coming to this business because it reminds me of home. And I do think that having a unique story as an owner to these businesses that, carry on your tradition, something that you can relate to, also brings in those customers because it makes you feel like you're back home. So I think that's important when it comes to a customer and business. And again, I'm just thinking about food right now.
JR.
Well, I learned a long time ago that people buy from people. And as Latinos, I think we have the advantage in that we're a warm, giving, generous, inclusive community. If anybody walks through the door, somebody walk in the house, a complete stranger, my grandmother would be sitting them down, feeding them, making them burrito, doing whatever. So I think from a business aspect, as Latino-owned businesses, of course, product is important too, but it's a sense of customer service. It's a sense of inclusiveness. It's that sense of I am proud of what I do, and I'm going to make sure that my product, whatever it is the highest quality and caliber, and I put my name, palabra, that in the culture itself. You want to be proud of what you produce or your service and put your name behind it and stand behind it. Where so many things you get always, it's a quick buck, let's turn it around. And then two, as far as from the cultural aspect, depending on the product, of course, if it's a retail store or whatever, it's always nice to have some sort of artwork or logo incorporating your logo or something that kind of relates to the Latino community, if that's going to be something that you're pushing, but also is well accepted by the general market. And then two, let's talk about the general market. Just because they're not Hispanic doesn't mean they don't want to be, okay? Doesn't mean they don't want to be. Right now in the United States, 1 out of every 10 restaurants in this country are Mexican food restaurants. 1 out of 10, okay? That's huge. When I saw a survey not too long ago that said the number 1 Mexican food restaurant in the country was Taco Bell, I questioned, they'd never been to the Valley, I questioned that whole theory. But the point being is the community is growing. Between the years between 2000 and 2010, 57% of this country's growth was due to the Hispanic population, 57%. Between 2010 and 2020, 53% of this country's growth was directly due to the Hispanic population. We're continuing to grow, and we're going to double one more time before we finally plateau off. So as you look at that, we have a growing Latino community. We have more and more people, thanks to Hispanic Heritage Month and forums such as this, that more non-Hispanics are understanding the culture a little bit. And as they understand it and they experience it, I've seen so many non-Hispanics that leave going, I know what they're thinking. They don't say it out loud. I kind of wish they were born Latino, instead of, because we do have a culture. They do have something I can identify with. And so many people embrace it, whether it be the food, the music, the culture, the colors, the dancing, the tequila shots, whatever. So it's important that as a business owner or a customer, if I'm going to be a customer, I'm going to go into and if it's Latino owned or Latino or Latina owned, I don't like the Latinx term. So if it's Latino, if it's Hispanic owned, I try to do business there, because each time you do business there, it works. And in the Hispanic community, I think it's important as business owners, we do business with each other. If you look at the Asian community, you look at the Jewish community, money circulates 6 or 7 times in that community before it goes out. With Latinos, nosotros, maybe half a cycle and we're down at Kmart or someplace else. No, we need to learn to spend money within our own community, because as you do that, the overall economic boat will rise for everybody. So from a customer standpoint, you do business with, you choose where you spend your money. And if it's an environment that is friendly, if customer service is good, I'll gladly pay a few dollars more for something if I know it's helping a minority-owned company or another Latino-owned business. And then 2, from the company owner standpoint, put that pride, put that culture, put that product and the service to the forefront, and things will take care of themselves.
That is great.
All right. Well, I just want to follow up, how do we leverage it, what we are? And that's our culture, it's our food, right? How do we leverage that? I'm like you thinking about food. I'm thinking about Julio's. JR and I visited Julio's tortilla chip factory in Del Rio. And this Julio started, his father started in their kitchen in their home, and then moved to a kitchen in their garage. Now they have this big, massive industry of what he built in his home, and now has turned it into a really big market. And it's in H-E-B, it's in Walmart, it's everywhere. But what I'm getting at is that, they started with what their love in their food that they loved. His dad loved making these chips, and people would knock on his door and come and buy chips all hours of the day. But it's putting your culture and what you learned from your abuelitas back into a product that other people have not had an experience with. I think just here in Kyle, we think about Abuelita's Bakery. They started in their house as well. And they put their love of what their grandmother taught them into these baked goods, and started selling them out of their house. And then within a couple of months, they're in a food trailer. Within a year, they're now into a brick and mortar store, which is kind of unheard of. But it shows that when you put your pride and your love into something that you grew up with and you share it with the world, it can be successful, right? And we think about, La Ola Pop Shop, another really great, business that started off at home and has expanded to something. So it's really sharing our culture, our foods, everything in business, and being able to put it in a way and market it to where everybody gets a chance to taste abuelita's, pan dulce, or even, abuelita's menudo, something that we made in our house that we can now share with the entire community or with the world. But it's also, lifting each other up in business. One of the things that I love about, TAMACC is that these are Hispanic-owned businesses that come together and they work and collaborate to lift each other up and to, network and learn from each other. That's important because, if you're a new business and you can talk to somebody that's been in business for a while and he looks like you, then you're going to definitely listen to him and try to follow their model, right, that they've laid out. They've already been through it. So it's important to make sure that we're lifting each other up in business. And even as consumers, like JR said, hey, let's go find those Hispanic-owned business, minority-owned businesses, and let's support them because it's important. We have a lot of them. Yes, sir.
Robert, to your point, in this country right now, Hispanic-owned businesses are growing faster than any other market segment. Latina-owned businesses are growing about 7 times faster than everybody else. I don't know what y'all are doing. I'm watching Oprah and Christina at the same time because just to try to see what you get. It's phenomenal, and there's reasons behind it. But the Hispanic Hispanic population is its growth, so are its businesses. So very entrepreneurial. I was talking to a Texas State University professor the other day, and he goes, "JR, you Latinos, you're very entrepreneurial." I go, well, you call it entrepreneurial. We used to call it survival. We did whatever we could to make a buck, selling stuff at the pulga, making tamales, selling on the side, whatever. point to your point is that as we have the businesses growing, they need to sustain themselves. Do they make it past that 5-year mark, the 10-year mark, and also scaling up? Julio's, Manuel, he was telling me his dad started, and he showed us that pan where he was making the tortilla chips. Right now, they knock out over 25,000 tons a day of tortilla chips. So he learned how to scale up. So I think as a community, not only do we need to learn business, I mean, we may be the best tortilla chip maker in the world, but unless we know how to scale up, teach others to do it, work with the SBA, learn how to get loans, learn how to leverage that, take on partners, learning franchising. So we need to scale up a little bit and learn how to do that better, because if in fact we were to do that, it would add enormous addition to our economy. And right now in the U.S., if you were to get all the Latinos in the U.S., and if we were to be our own country, we would have the 5th largest GDP in the world, the 5th largest. So we have the numbers, we have some of the financial wherewithal, we make a huge economic impact. We just need to learn to get that pride, get that culture, get the customer service, learn how to scale up, and hombre will take over everything.
Cool. All right.
You just mentioned something, and hopefully Travis is listening. Gabriela's in South Austin. She has several businesses. I am dying to bring her here. So that's a Latina-owned business. I love their food. So if Gabriela's is listening somewhere, we want you here in Kyle, by the way.
All right, going on to the next question. Can you share your perspective on the diversity within the Hispanic community? And I know we've touched a little bit on that, but
I'll just start off with it. What the heck is Latino nowadays? I mean, first of all, it's not even a race. It's an ethnicity. I mean, the term Hispanic isn't even Hispanic. I mean, it was a term coined, a phrase coined during the Reagan administration. We saw a growing group of people. So we got Hispanics, I guess, that weren't even called Hispanics. I get together, what are you going to come up with? And I guess I came up with Hispanic, a kind of a derivative of Hispano. But as they did that, is growing. Now you have brown Hispanics, you have black Hispanics, you have Asian Hispanics. I got a guy, Jose Hernandez, from my times in Washington, D.C., is a New York Dominican. And it was the Obama White House, and a bunch of Latino leaders from all over the country came in to meet in the White House. And I was fortunate to be part of that group, and Jose was with me. And at the end of the meeting, we're meeting with some of Obama's new cabinet members and everything. He proudly stands up and goes, as a Afro-Latino, I go, ¿qué es eso, Afro-Latino? He goes, bro, I'm hedging my bets, man. I'm hedging my bets. So I was in California. I met a guy named Pablo Wong. We come in all sizes. We come in all shapes. We come in all colors. So you have, the term Hispanic, it's kind of like I tell even white people, after enough tequila shots, after enough food, I mean, I'll make you a Hispanic, because Hispanic on the census form, it's not a race. And you self-identify. And for a lot of people who don't realize it, I mean, I know my birth certificate, it doesn't say, it says white. So we are white. So when we use the term non-Hispanic whites, these are other white people, as we are, but aren't Hispanic or don't identify as Hispanic. So it's really a messed up culture you look at. It's just kind of all over the place. But it makes sense when you look at our origins and how we chose the Mexicans, the indigenous people, all the moving around. So I say you get a group of indigenous people, you get Spaniards, you get French, you get all these other European countries, you shake them up, let 2,000 years go by, and you got your modern day Mexican. I mean, that's it. So to that point, very diverse. We're not a monolithic group. We comes in all shapes and sizes, and it is just a trip to see what comes out.
Cool. Thank you. All right, I want to get to a Mentimeter question, the final one. Do you believe celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month is important to the community? Anybody want to answer that one?
Yeah. Yes, I think, and I'll start off. It's important because first of all, and thank you all for doing this, it's opportunities like this. It's forums like this. It creates a dialogue. It's Hispanic Heritage Month actually started out as Hispanic Heritage Week under LBJ. Then it was Reagan who turned it into Hispanic Heritage Month. But as you look at it, and since it's been passed by Congress and has been made into a law, if you will, National Hispanic Heritage Month, it gives us an opportunity to have an open dialogue where other places we wouldn't. It almost forces governments, other entities to go, oh God, it's Hispanic Heritage Month again, break out the tacos. It almost, I don't say it forces, but it almost encourages them to say, okay, let's start opening up. Let's start learning about the culture. Let's have some dialogue. Let's start teaching it in our schools a little bit. And I think it's important that we have this because with all these changes in our government, with DEI, with the banning of books, with the reduction of the 10% to 5% in entrance to universities, there's all kinds of things that are working against us as a community. And as a community, we need to make sure we stay working together, overcome these obstacles and diversities, and know that we are going to succeed. So is Hispanic Heritage Month important? Absolutely. I think it's equally as important to the non-Hispanic as it is to people in Hispanic culture because it gives us a chance to really grow, to shine, to give an opportunity to our children and the next generation, and where they see the artwork, they see the music, they see the mariachis, the baile folklorico, the foods, all that's important. I mean, that's what, not one single thing makes us, the bloodline, yeah, but it's the fusion of all the things that make Latinos Latinos. And I think that is the hardest part to describe to other people that is not, but when they get it, they get it. So yes, Hispanic Heritage Month gives us that opportunity. And the fact that Hispanic Heritage Month, and we explained it earlier, people go, Jared, how come Hispanic Heritage Month isn't a month long? It is a month long. But it's starting in the middle of the month. I go, why? Because you're late to everything? No, it's not. That's not the reason.
I agree with that.
Yeah, we're gonna be, well, if you're Dominican, yeah. When does it start? Ahorita. I think it's important to know why, and it stretches over to the 2-month period. But it also gives a chance for the media to be able to write, hopefully, something about the culture and the contributions and the people who have contributed so much to the community, and not just people be watching TV about the rhetoric and how we're taking everybody's jobs and we're doing all the. There's just too much negative. There's just way too much negative, and I think the Hispanic Heritage Month is essential. And there's some people that think they ought to be longer. I mean, sure, but as long as the population keeps growing and as long as we still have the inequities that we do in this country, I think that it's imperative that us as a community, as a culture, hang on to our identity and promote it for others to see and to be able to appreciate.
I have a quick question. Rachel, when do we need to? 8:30 is the. Okay. Michelle?
So I had a reporter ask me before the Heritage Month started, just to tell them what Hispanic heritage meant to me. And, so I gave them an answer. And then they came back with, so what have Hispanics contributed to the Hays County? And I'm just like, girl, bye. Because, because they, we've been here for a long time doing lots of things. So how far back do you want me to go? Thousands of years? And so, but that just kind of told me, like, not only do we want to educate our own, youth, Hispanic youth about our heritage, but the non-Hispanic as well. We've done a lot of contributions to this county. And in fact, half the county is ran by 2 Latinas, right? Y'all know that, and so this is our time to like JR said, shine and elevate ourselves and advocate for the work that we're doing and bring all that to light. So, and like I said, it seems like every year it seems to be more than it used to be. The whole month has been, and that's really great to see. But it's because our population is turning way Hispanic. So.
Dr. Lopez?
Yeah, just to say that, this month, if you are shy about moving forward and sharing the successes, there are so many successes that we have to celebrate from our community. Do it every single day. Show up every single day, the very best that you are, the very best that you have. And And I think that for me, yes, it's important because maybe this is the time that somebody decides they're going to step forward and they're going to say something and they're going to really shine. But bring it then every single day, 365, because that's what makes this so important, so beautiful as a tapestry, because there's so many people who have been able to be successful. Bring them along and be doing that, everything that you do.
Thank you, Michelle. Freddy?
I think just to piggyback on what JR said, like, I think it's the responsibility. I'll go back to that word, right? As Latinos and as who we are, and that what makes us Latinos. That I'll go back to the family values and just how we are different than other cultures. How la abuelita is taking care of the kids, right? Like that doesn't happen in other cultures as it happens in the Latino culture. That binds us differently, right? That responsibility during this month, and to Dr. Lopez, is to bring it to the next level. That's what I said earlier, right? Where it's all year around, where it's not just 1 month. And I think it relies on everybody. It's regardless of culture. I think what really brings back some type of value to what you do is helping others, right? Like you can't really be a leader if you don't have people that are behind you, right? And I think as community leaders, as people that, put the time and the effort for a community, I think, it goes from, helping that small business and be an advocate of really going to that restaurant because it's a Latino-owned restaurant, minority-owned restaurant, to just helping other people, inspire other people by what you do on a daily basis, right? And, it starts with our kids. It starts with our family, and you want to make that change, you start with the people that you touch every day, right? The people that are within your arm's reach.
Cool.
Thank you.
The last Mentimeter.
Well, let's ask.
Okay.
Vianna wanted to
Okay,
talk.
Vianna, go ahead.
We're about to close.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
go ahead.
just really quick. I think it's important that we continue to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month to allow kids that grew up being bullied and feeling ashamed of our culture, especially when we have so many kids nowadays that, now they have Spanish classes, but like my kids who don't speak Spanish, like I want them to be able to see that, we are, our culture is very proud to be who we are. And so for anybody who feels ashamed right now, kids, adults, like, don't be. We're all the same, and we're all accepting, and it's a very beautiful culture. It really is.
Thank you, Vianna. So I think we would like to thank you all for being here today. Now we are crunching time. It has been very exciting to hear so many good opinions from all of you. This was a very, very interesting group of panelists with so much information and so much input. So very excited. I thank Mayor Pro Tem Rizo for doing this with me. I know I was just pulling him. It was fantastic. We appreciate all for being here.
Yeah, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros esta noche y celebrando este mes is muy importante para nosotros hispanos. So thank y'all for being here today, and thank you for helping us, bring a little more awareness about who we are as as people, and just highlighting some of your experiences growing up and just being a part of this panel. It's an honor to have y'all here, and thank y'all for being here.
Muchas gracias a todos, and thank you, staff, for staying later. Thank you.